Today, we've got myself, Chris Gettle. I'm Vice President of Product Management for our endpoint security products. So many of you are using like our patch management solutions. How many of you guys are using patch? Good chunk. And then Rex is my counterpart.
Rex McMillan, Vice President of Product Management. I'm on the UEM side. So as you discover stuff so we can patch it, that's my role.
So our two products pretty much work side by side in most of your environments. And then we also have Jose with us today.
Yeah, so I'm a technical strategist really on the sales side. By my story, a few of you have probably heard it, but I was a customer multiple times over. I used EPM for maybe 15, 16 years. So I'd say I've gone through quite a bit of the pains, and I've actually took the journey on what I call the hybrid, but depending on your use case, could be a migration.
So Jose's feedback here today is going to be very much as a customer that has gone through the migration from Ivanti's on-prem solutions to the cloud. So we brought him in here to share some of his experiences there as well. So we're going to go through what Ivanti's hybrid strategy is. It's not just about migrations. We've created an experience here that allows you to move from on-prem to cloud at the pace you need. You may be moving by use cases. You may be moving by groups of systems. We want to make this as flexible and easy as possible. We're going to talk about how that works. We're also going to get into a couple of discussion topics, and here's where we want to have more interaction from you all. What does an ideal migration look like? This isn't us saying what it looks like. We want to hear about what you envision an ideal migration to be. You may not have experienced this with Ivanti products, but I guarantee many of you in here have moved products from on-prem to cloud over the years. What made other migrations ideal? What worked well? And how can we start to take some of that feedback in as well? And then also the why migrate to cloud. There's some obvious reasons, but there's other ones too. So we want to hear from you all, what are the motivators for your organizations to move to the cloud? And then we're actually going to go through and discuss many of the different poll responses as we go through. And we're going to do our first poll of the day. Are you using the Ivanti Neurons platform today? That'll be your first question there. This just gives us an idea of how many of you have already started on this journey and how many of you are here to learn about this and get an idea of where you'd like to go. And then also the other part that Rex and I always want to understand is what is the on-prem products that you're planning to migrate? We've got a lot of them. I don't know how many of you know this, but at one point I had 8 different on-prem patch management solutions in the Ivanti portfolio. We've reduced that a little bit over time, but I guarantee we've probably got at least 3 of those represented in the room today. And Rex has a couple of UEM products as well.
I'm not nearly as guilty as you. I've never got to 8, but I definitely have my fair share set of on-prem. And it's not bad that we have multiple on-prem products. They are very focused. They do the right thing for the right audience. Now we're trying to take all those proper use cases and make them really SaaS solutions that are done correctly for those use cases.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about the hybrid strategy. This is the approach that Ivanti has taken to try to make it as easy as possible to move to the cloud. There's 3 main things that the cloud product is really trying to drive strategically. We want to be able to bring more observation capabilities into the experience. Historical analysis, anomaly detection, performance analysis, correlation, contextualization. These are additional things that we can do if we bring more information together. We have more ability to tell you interesting things about your environment, to help you observe what's actually going on. And I think through the keynotes and through you might have seen in other sessions and on the expo floor, you've probably seen a number of examples of what Ivanti Neurons is doing there over the course of the last day and a half here. Insights.
So as we talk about the ability to gain insights, I worked in an on-prem world. So as we went out and we did discovery, well, we discover a lot of products and I put them in a relational database. And I have every restriction that a great relational database gives me. So when we said, hey, we're time for us to build a SaaS platform that really is going to enable us to have insights, got a group of developers together, said, hey, we're going to build discovery on the SaaS platform. And the first thing was, all right, so we're going to need a relational database. And I'm like, no, stop, time out, hang on. We have to do this in a new way that gives us the ability to have insights. So if you go to some of the sessions, you're going to hear us go deep dive into why we use things like NoSQL databases, documents. They give us the ability to provide insights and access that we've never had in on-prem products. The innovation that's driven by those allows us to now have visibilities and put layers on that there's no way we've ever been able to do in another way. So as we've built these products out, we started with these fundamentals in mind of how can we get to all the right data, normalized, reconciled, and really drive it so we can drive change and automation off that insight. So fundamental differences right to begin with.
One of the things that you heard a lot about this week is the intersection between IT and security. Most of the security tools in your environment are there to tell you about all the problems you have. One of the most important things with our strategy is always making sure that not only can we drive observation level information, provide you with insights, but most importantly, how are we helping you to take action? Whether it's on the IT side, hey, I've got new machines that are discovered. How do I understand which ones those are, which platforms I need to maybe, so if I'm looking at discovery, I may be able to see, hey, there's X number of machines in Active Directory, but only 85% of those are actually in my EDR solution. All right, this is the list of machines, that delta, these are the machines we need to take action on. How do we get to that level of understanding? And then provide you the tools to be able to do that. So how many of you have seen the Neurons bots experience in action? This is one of those key toolboxes. If you haven't seen that yet on the expo floor, go check that out. Robin and the team of SEs that are manning that booth have some amazing bots experiences there that they can show you. Some of them are crazy complex, not for the faint of heart, but I've seen Robin put together a bot that will actually go and evaluate the CIS benchmarks and even correct things that are not set properly. It's an incredibly complex bot, but it shows you how powerful that experience is. So scripts, runbooks, hyperautomation, that bots experience is a really good example of that no-code, low-code type experience. Drag and drop, create the experience you want, enable that to automatically self-heal, or put it into the hands of your analysts to be able to run as they need to. This is just more of a architecture view, but you can start to see how this strategy comes together. We've got two main parts of our portfolio, the endpoint and risk management. That's Rex and myself, all of our on-prem products, and the cloud modules that we've been launching, and then our service and asset management. Our counterpart, Hitesh, on that side, all of their products. In the heart of all of this is the Ivanti Neurons platform. This is what's bringing together. It doesn't matter if it's the on-prem or cloud version of any of these products. It is the heart of this strategy, able to bring all this information together, because as we do that, what Sri talked about this morning, going from 70 products to 36 products, and from that, driving down into 5 key solutions that are really focused on solving the big problems that you've got today. This is how those 5 key solutions come together. Without the Neurons platform to bring all of that together, it's very difficult to bring all of these capabilities into one place. If I've got vulnerability data going into the risk-based vulnerability management platform, I can pass vulnerabilities straight into the patch management solution to go remediate those. I've got other vulnerabilities that can't be remediated by patching. I need to be able to push those over to the developers. Well, we can populate tickets directly into Jira and ADO. Great. What about all those other vulnerabilities that are, maybe it's a platform, a business critical application? There's no simple patch for that. It's going to be a team of people who have to do a 3-month project plan to upgrade that system. It might be SAP, it might be something else, but you need to route that to the right people to do that. That's where things like the service management platform come into play. So these are just examples of how those solutions need that interoperability, and that's what the Neurons platform brings to the equation.
So I like to always stop here when we do this. We're here in a class talking about migration, talking about SaaS. How many of you have had to go try to explain to your boss why we should go to a SaaS? Everybody's boss just buys in. So I keep having the conversation of why SaaS? People will call and they're like, hey, why do we want to go hybrid? Why do we want to get to SaaS? What's the motivators? And when you start asking people what the motivators are, I'm down to 3 motivators. Chris just talked really good about one of the motivators that I think is a big reason to go. It's innovation. We have the ability to innovate. There's ways and news, as you heard me talk a minute ago, hey, we were able to redesign and use things like NoSQL databases, technologies that aren't on-prem. On-prem guys don't really want to skill up and try to run some of those cloud-type solutions. So we can drive innovation. There's 2 other big reasons you go to SaaS. One is man hours. Once it's SaaS, we maintain it. We take those man hours. You're not getting more employees. You're not getting more IT staff. Even if the problems go bad tomorrow, no new people are showing up to help you. That's just, I think Thomas has told me that. How many times, Thomas, have you told me that? More than once. So it did sink in, see? But man hours is a real thing. The more hours that you can spend using the tool, not maintaining the tool and upgrading the tool, that delivers a ton of value. There's a third reason, and the third reason really follows in Chris's area, and it's security. So I've watched this play out many times over the last few years, and it happens every time. On-prem product, somebody in security, some malactor or good guy, finds a vulnerability on an on-prem product. The moment that happens, Chris, it's all hands on deck. We scramble the teams, we fix that defect, we test it, we pen test it, and when we announce to the world, there's a problem, please apply this patch. Now, all of you guys are super good. You get that patch that day, you put it in your lab, you test it, and you apply it to that box. The next day, Chris and I, we wake up and life's good. Every one of those on-prem products in the world is patched. That never happens. What really happens is you guys are really good, but your peers over here don't apply the patch. And now it's announced to the world that there's a problem. Little malactor goes over and he starts probing that box and he gets in it and he tests it. And every time I see a CV on one of my on-prem products, I just die because I know in 30 to 60 days, I'm going to have another one. Because that malactor is going to go test that thing real hard and he's going to find something else. And now all of you guys are exposed because your buddy didn't patch. If everybody doesn't patch, they're open. Somebody's going to be testing it. In my SaaS world, if a vulnerability gets found, it's all on the hands on deck. That thing's patched. It's patched immediately. The whole world's patched, and we're back in business.
We fixed it for all of you without you having to do anything about it.
So we know that as we watch these, you'll see a product, and it's not just us. You'll see a product have a CVE, 60 to 90 days. We'll see another set. I see Chris talk about it in Patch Tuesday. I'm like, check my calendar, 60 days, we'll see more. And that's because those guys have got that. It's come onto their radar and it's visible. So going to SaaS, there's manpower, there's security and innovation. That's really why that we want to talk SaaS and push SaaS. It's not that it's just a cooler technology. They're really fundamental business reasons why we want to help you get to these journeys.
So this is the 3 kind of key areas across the Ivanti portfolio. And as they come together, we've got one key piece here in the center, digital experience. It's really hard to achieve visibility into the digital experience of your users without all 3 of these pieces. I need to know about the devices, what's going on those devices. I need to understand the security of my environment and how that might be impacting my users. But if I don't take into context the service side of things, I may lose out on a whole very important part of that digital experience. I will give you a very personal example. My digital experience score in the Ivanti Neurons tenant for Ivanti is terrible.
Suffer in silence.
It's below, I believe for a while it was below 40. All because of one service ticket. Everything else with my endpoint was well managed, patching up to date. I would hope that I do because I'm responsible for things like our patch solutions and our Patch Tuesday webinar and everything. But the one piece that really drove my digital experience score down was over on this side. Without that context, somebody would not have known that Chris is actually having a horrible digital experience, because the laptop we're actually using for this presentation right now has some really funky issue going on, where when I go to start, shut down my system, it looks like it shut down. Stick that in my bag, drive to the airport, pull it out again. The thing is piping hot because it didn't fully shut off. The fan's going, something about the drivers on that are just in a bad state. It took me 4 weeks back and forth with the IT department to figure out, hey, we're just going to need to replace your device. You're outside of warranty already. It's time to just do that. So we closed out the ticket, but I actually told them I wanted to wait until we're right on the cusp of some of the newer AI CPUs coming out, and I wanted to wait until I can get that. So I'm choosing to keep this experience right now for a very good reason. But without that context, we had no idea Chris's digital experience was actually pretty terrible, right? So that is very important. As we bring all three of these pieces together, we get a unique ability to drive an experience that any other vendor would have to rely on multiple products in your ecosystem to provide.
When I said suffer in silence when you started there, I didn't say it just to torture you, Chris.
You were telling me to shut up and not talk about that?
No, what I was really saying is IT people are notorious for suffering in silence. My
Most of
box's
your digital
problem,
experience scores?
it's got a problem,
The lowest
but
in the
I know
company.
how to work around it, so I'll just suffer with it.
Right.
And we go along suffering in silence because as IT guys, we're like, it's not that bad. I just do these 3 little workarounds and then life is okay. Well, if we're doing it as IT, our users are doing that. I went upstairs the other day, my wife's working on her computer, and I watched it, and I'm like, how long has it been doing that? And she's like, oh, you just do this to get around it. And I'm like, oh my heavens.
The suffer in silence. Yep.
So suffer in silence is a real problem where if we don't have that visibility, so many of our users are doing that.
So you saw this morning. Sri talked about this. This is from direct feedback from all of you. But each of these solution sets require multiple solutions from Ivanti to deliver. And with that, we can pull everything together and provide this additional digital experience on top of that. So that's a huge part of the Neuron strategy. Now, as we go into that hybrid experience, it doesn't matter which product you're starting from. We want to make sure you've got a pathway to the cloud and make sure that you've got a way to get there at the pace that you need. I actually had a conversation with a rep this morning. They've got a customer who is using our third-party publishing solution for Config Manager and Intune. They want to migrate to Intune, but their Config Manager side is not at that point where they can migrate off of it yet. So they're like, oh yeah, we have this renewal now. Can I renew them on the migration SKU again? I'm like, absolutely. We've built this pathway so that you don't have some of the typical cliffs that you would run into, a time frame that you have to be done by, a double cost of running the 2 pieces of software simultaneously. All of those things have been accounted for in what we're doing. You buy a subscription SKU for the cloud. It has your on-prem subscription built into it. If you move from that migration SKU to the regular SKU for the cloud, the same price applies. So you won't be double paying for this. So now I've got the ability to provide both the on-prem and the Neurons experience side by side. And if I need 6 months to get there, great. If I need 3 years to get there, not a problem. If my next renewal comes around and I'm still not done, maybe I've got a few more use cases to move over, don't worry about it. We can renew that migration SKU. It is
Chris,
truly meant to be a hybrid
like,
experience.
This was, the middle pillar there was really critical to me, right? Again, having EPM, having Neurons, and just having that option to be hybrid and not a rip off the Band-Aid kind of scenario. Then you start identifying those use cases. That's what we've talked about, right? Is what are the quick, easy ones that I can take from EPM, in my example anyways, over to Neurons, right? I always reference remote control because that is probably by far, but for me was the easiest, right?
Yep.
Instead of having my analyst and I always say analyst, but I mean more than just an analyst, right? There's business side folks that we would give remote control to, like, for example, corporate security. They manage their cameras, right, for all the buildings. They wanted remote control into those devices that manage the cameras. So they outside the box of who can I give these capabilities to, right? Security, again, asset management teams, things like that. So I started kind of piecing all those different pieces of where are those kind of quick wins. Again, remote control was just easy. Instead of having to give them, a console access or a web console, I just said, hey, go to this cool new modern UI in the cloud, essentially, right? Remove the remote control tunnel kind of dependency, and then you start kind of going backwards and say, okay, outside of remote control, what else can I do, right? App distribution. Again, you are going to have some cases where there are good things in EPM today, right, that are not in the cloud, like we can all admit provisioning, right? If you're doing provisioning, that's not in the cloud right now, right? So keep that on EPM. All the other things that you can afford to do, move to the cloud, right? Again, patch is one that, depending on how complex you are, those are, again, quick little wins you can move to the cloud. Try to think of other ones too. And maybe I'm getting a little too far ahead of myself, but I like the hybrid experience, at least for me, because I could use Neurons to manipulate EPM and vice versa. So as an admin, we all have the issues of make sure our EPM agent is on there. Well, you have Neurons on there. Use Neurons to deploy EPM or vice versa, right? Or even use Neurons to call Volscan or Policy Sync. Those are, again, kind of quick little actions that I did just to be able to kind of keep that hybrid experience. And depending on how large your enterprise is and how complex you are, that journey may be a year, maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Or if you're just quick and you just want to kind of be leading edge, maybe it'll be 6 months and you'll be on Neurons, right? So again, just kind of from my perspective, that's kind of how I took the approach.
So Chris has told you all the business things we did to make the middle column work. Jose has told us how it worked. I'm going to tell you one last piece, which is when we realized we wanted to be in hybrid mode, we knew that to begin with. So as we built the new Neurons agent, it's tested to run next to the other agents.
Good point.
So we're saying these run next to each other. Now, the one common question I get is, hey, I don't want more agents because it increases the footprint. You've got some of these capabilities that do the same thing. Well, like I have a process, Softmon, who runs all the time to collect software usage. What's ran, who runs it, where. That guy, he works for both guys. So if the Neurons agent gets installed, when he says, hey, I need Softmon running, Softmon comes up and he's like, oh, look at that. The EPM agent's already doing my job. I'll just shut myself down nicely and I'll just use the results from him. So we've built the agents to coexist, but still keep that footprint as small as we can on the agent. We're not just, hey, run two big agents right next to each other. We know, hey, I've got an inventory scanner. I only need one scanner. I'm going to use the results. I can pick up the same configurations from both of them. So I do a lot of work to make sure that this hybrid mode on the client side causes no issue. I don't want to use any more CPU, no more battery, but I know I still have to do that. So from a technical side, that's a big piece for us that we know these things coexist well.
Absolutely. So think of it as a 3-step process. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to deploy one of our connector servers, and this is going to let you start to plug into and pull information from your on-prem solutions up into the cloud. So any of you who have played around with this with the on-prem patch solutions and the Neurons patch solution, you know that the Neurons patch experience, you get things like patch intelligence, all this risk-based information in there. With that connector, you can see your EPM or security controls data come up and populate into that experience from the cloud side. Even if you're not fully ready to move everything over, you can start getting immediate value by just putting these connectors in place and getting that visibility. The next stage you do is you start to configure things. So for patch, again, I would configure the Neurons side to, basically make sure that I'm seeing everything I should be. If my cloud result and my on-prem result are in agreement, then I can start to move on to the point where I would go and turn on remediation from the cloud side. And then at that point, if I'm ready, I can stop using the on-prem patch module. Remote control. Again, I think I've heard many times this is one of the first use cases that most of our migrating customers move to the cloud. You get a lot of additional capabilities out of the remote control there. It's very easy to move that one across, and you get a lot of immediate value. Discovery, I think, is one of the other big ones that goes first.
So as we looked at the migration, it wasn't a lift and shift. It was, hey, discovery is a real problem, And it's not just how do I discover, but how do I create actionable discovery? Chris referred to earlier, how do I know who's in my AD that's not in my CrowdStrike, or who's in CrowdStrike that's not in AD? That ability to go in and reconcile, normalize. I'll be honest, when I started on that journey, I had two people come over and they got me in the corner and they said, Rex, you're not going to win this. This is like an impossible task you're doing, because when you get a purchase record and an Active Directory record, there's no way you can reconcile those together. I'm like, I know, I have to hold them as two until I find a third record, and then I can start to merge them. So lots of capability there, but we started out with, how do we make discovery that next generation? We had remote control in EPM. We've had it for years. If I go back, we had a developer that wrote the first remote control, and we licensed it to Microsoft. That's how they got their little tool that they use today. So it's awesome. We've had it for a long time, but as we started the Neurons Cloud, we're like, remote control. I think you used the term last resort. Yeah. It's the last resort tool. In a support world, how do we become so much more efficient? So we're not trying to just do lift and shift. As we talk about transitioning these, I hope that I'm bringing you value in these areas. Like, hey, this makes sense. Let me get my support team on Neurons. Let me get patch intelligence to help me prioritize. And then that starts to drive. And that's true value. And then we made the business case that makes it so it's easy to consume.
Just wanted to add a comment on the agent side. Again, that's always a concern around having two agents. And really kind of as you start migrating those things, or kind of, again, remote control, you name it, any one of those, you can start making your agents that much lighter, right? So change those configs. Don't have them do scanning. And I'm talking about the on-prem agent. As you're moving that to the cloud, so then you're kind of bringing the resource utilization on that on-prem agent down as you're transitioning over to the Neurons agent, right? So that's one way I tackle that concern, again, because management always says why we have too many agents, and really more security will tell you that. So again, that's just kind of a tip to be able to kind of offset that as well.
All right. So you've heard about the strategy. Now we're going to get into a little bit of the open discussion. So we're going to be going back into the polls again, starting to bring up a few more of those questions. And we're also going to be looking for some feedback from you all. So the first discussion topic we wanted to get into is, what is an ideal migration look? What does that look like? So what are your barriers to SaaS migration?
I like this. This is good. We told you what we were thinking, and now you're going to get to tell us what the challenges we had with where we were.
First question that we had, almost half of you are already using Ivanti Neurons at some level. Several of you are still investigating. We got about 16% now saying, no, you're not using it today. A few that are unsure. We got a couple of others too.
That was me.
You just had to go there, didn't you?
I did. I went there. You gave me the choice.
Right. All right. So our second question, which on-prem products are you using today? Looks like we've got a very large EPM representation in the room today. Some security controls, and then a few that are saying they don't use the on-prem products, and a few more others. All right.
That was you again.
The barriers to migration. No barrier, we're migrating, so 5% of you are gung-ho, you're often doing it. Cost and budget. So that's definitely one where there's going to be a difference in cost getting up to the cloud, of course. When Rex and I get the question about that, there's always this conversation that we have with people trying to help them understand the differences in the economics in there. When we created the cloud platform, it scaled at a workload of 1 million endpoints.
That was the checkpoint where I finally said, all right, I got 1 million endpoints. Now's the time for me to go calculate the costs.
Right. How many of you can afford to buy 250,000 endpoints worth of a subscription? That's about the break where we could start to give you that type of volume price break because of how we've scaled the cloud platform. So that model doesn't work as well as it does in like an on-prem world. Where we do get some economical value in being able to discount further, though, is when we go across modules. So there's five things that drive the cost on cloud. There's ingest, egress, CPU, storage, encryption, right? Did I get them all?
Processing.
Processing. Yep.
Encryption processing.
CPU processing. Yep. But those are the key areas that really the cost comes into play. Now, as Rex said, we've got a number of things that are sharing a lot of the same information. If I've got the data coming up from Discovery, that data in Discovery is being used in a variety of other experiences within the product. So if I buy Discovery with some of the other modules, we get the economics of having multiple of those cost points actually sharing the value. So as we get additional modules in place, that gives Rex and I the flexibility to drive a better value for the customer in consuming the cloud product. So that's one of the challenges with that. Now, some of the hidden costs of this, of course, are I move to cloud. What are the things I no longer have to do once I get fully under the cloud? Upgrades of consoles, upgrades of the agents. A lot of you, I think we had a lot of pressure in years back saying, hey, you got to slow down how frequently you're releasing because we need time to be able to roll things out and we can't do 3, 4, 5 upgrades a year. It's just too much effort, right? Cloud side.
The dichotomies in my world.
Yes.
I talk to EPM customer and they're like, one release, supported for 4 years. And then I go to my Neurons teams and I'm like, hey, we're a CI/CD pipeline. We're going to release daily or many times a day. And then I get back over to my EPM team and I'm like, one really solid release. We're supporting it forever. So definitely a big change in how we can come out there.
Yep. So as you're going through that, let us know what the barriers are with communicating those benefits up, because there's a lot of benefits to getting to the cloud. The FTEs that you're spending on maintaining on-prem solutions versus a cloud solution change significantly.
So I would like to pick on some people. Some people said they got some privacy concerns here.
Yep.
If I could get any one of you that marked that, if you could tell me, like, hey, what are your privacy concerns and what can I do to help alleviate those?
So if you haven't gone through the evaluation of the cloud product, we have, if you've heard of the Wistic platform, it's basically a platform for sharing out a lot of security and privacy information. As you're starting that journey, we give you access to a variety of information. SIG-Lite, pen test information, a variety of other reports in there that help you to understand and help answer those questions for the security and compliance teams, the policy teams. I've got multiple healthcare customers who are using the cloud product today. It absolutely can be done. Those teams just need the right information, and we can help get that for you. So if that's your number one barrier and you haven't started that conversation yet, absolutely let us know. We'll get you access to that Wistic site to help start fueling that conversation and get them the answers that they need. And another thing that they're going to appreciate, though, is the fact that, again, Rex and I get the ability to respond faster to a security vulnerability when it's in the cloud product than the slower process of getting on-prem out to you guys and then you having to go and upgrade all of those pieces within your environment. So there's still, it's easier for us to secure one cloud environment than it is for you to secure all of your real estate in most cases.
And as we talk about that, most of the time, there is always this concern of like, hey, where's my data? How's my data sitting? As we started with this was a primary concern. So in our tenants, data is not commingled. Everybody has their own container. It's all stored separately. It's all encrypted separately. So you have your own data store, your own encryption. Now in the healthcare world, we don't collect any patient health information. We're collecting the machine and we're collecting user type of data, but there's no PII typically there, or there's personal information, but no HIPAA information. So typically we can kind of work through that and pretty well.
Seems like these two probably overlapping because your concern basically crossed both of those.
Anything we didn't cover from the other guys that marked those two?
Yeah, regulatory side, anybody else?
If you could catch me after, if you don't want to say it in the group.
Right.
I am trying to make sure I've collected all those requirements and that we understand them. Once in a while, I can't talk your security team into it, but I'd like to at least know those so that I don't design something or build something wrong over time.
And I mean, this one, you could have something like, if you're in the federal space and FedRAMP is a requirement, if we're not fully certified there, yes, we understand those challenges and we'll work through and try to
We're working on that.
We're working on that. So if any of you were in that bucket, yes, we're aware. Technical gaps, this one we fully understand too. Now, that one's the reason why we created that hybrid SKU. You don't have to move everything if it's not ready for you yet. So if there's a couple of pieces that you need that aren't there yet, let's have a conversation about that. There's an ability, so as Rex said, provisioning may be the long tail on the EPM side. We've got customers that have migrated everything except for that one use case, and what they did was they just kept 10 on-prem licenses for EPM, one instance only, and all it's doing is provisioning now. Everything else has moved to the cloud. So there's ways to be able to move the bulk of what you're doing at your own pace. And actually, it makes it very flexible for that, because how many of you think that you'd be able to go and move everything you're doing in EPM today to the cloud in a month, 3 months, 6 months? You're going to need time. You got to move patch, software distribution,
Jose and I are
remote
laughing.
control. Jose, you've had experiences there. You want to share some of the, how did you guys pick and choose? You said remote control was your first, but as you guys did that, how did you roll those pieces out?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just understanding the use cases, right? I mean, and maybe rethinking how you're doing things today and how they can translate to cloud. Like if you're super complex on certain things, maybe reevaluate and say, do I have to be this complex, right? Can I just move to cloud if I simplify my process, right? Because again, longtime users of EPM or the other products, you kind of build these things out over years and you never change them because they just work, right? So maybe it is that whole reevaluating how you're doing it. Can it translate to cloud? And I think one thing that gets missed sometimes is it's not just like for like, right? Neurons gives you so much more with edge intelligence, the bots, that stuff doesn't exist in EPM, right? So that in itself shows value of like, hey, while I'm doing this hybrid migration, you can really justify the value in that strategy because you're getting all these other features that you just don't have on-prem today.
Security controls, for those of you who are on security controls, many of you are probably using EPM for the client side and security controls for the server side. We've got hundreds of customers doing that. Because the security controls product does some very unique things, the agentless capabilities, the VMware integration, offline VM and template patching, we're going to bring those things up to the cloud over time, but right now you can move all the workstation side of that and continue to use the server side of it. Yes, the Neurons agent can fully manage servers. I've got customers doing that. But if you've got specific needs that the on-prem products are doing that aren't in the cloud yet, you can absolutely continue to run in that hybrid mode for as long as you need. I think we start to cross over into this bucket a little bit too there. I do things a certain way in the example of patching. I'm doing things a certain way today. When I get to the cloud, things are going to be different. We chose that as we want to give you parity of capabilities, not parity of experience. Now, when I say that, it sounds like, wait a second, you're going to change my experience? That might sound icky in some levels. But the first phase of what we did, think of this as an adoption curve. As we built the first iteration of the Neurons patch experience, we brought up a very simple Windows and third-party patch coverage. It was a dead simple policy configuration. It literally would take you 30 seconds to configure your patch policy, and a near zero infrastructure rollout. Get your agent deployed. There's no repositories or anything. It's just peer-to-peer, which you're already using in EPM. You know how well that moves bits around efficiently in your network. But that made it so that customers were able to go out with a very simple configuration that handled a significant part of their environment that was low complexity. What we did differently, two things specifically. The cloud product will always scan for everything. Where EPM, security controls, you can configure that to say, I'm only worried about this part. What we lose when we take that approach is that ability to bring observability and insights into the experience. So the cloud product is going to do that differently. Now, you have 100% control over what gets remediated. And you also have control over what you're going to report up. So yeah, there might be other stuff out there, but right now our compliance reporting is based on what we've approved. We have the ability to tweak your compliance reporting to say, only report on this part, not the stuff that we've decided that we're not doing. But you still get the insights from it. The other piece is that patch intelligence piece. Getting the patch reliability and exploit information. We're not doing that in the on-prem products, and there was a reason for that. We get the additional insights by bringing a variety of different things together in the cloud. but we can make it so the on-prem solutions can take advantage of that. So even if you don't move patch over right away, when you buy the cloud subscription, that connector lets you push the EPM or security controls data up, even Config Manager and Intune. If you're on those platforms and using our third-party patching, you get the value of patch intelligence along with what you're doing today on-prem. So there's, when you get to that cost benefit part, there's ROI in getting the cloud subscription by getting those additional capabilities like we talked about in Discovery. Patch has several of them. There's a number of different experiences that you augment the on-prem experience in the process of moving things over. And then when you get fully cloud, you realize many of those other cost savings benefits too by retiring infrastructure, reducing upgrade and agent rollout times, things like that. So as you're working through this, work with us and we can kind of steer towards some of these additional benefits too. What stage are you at in your migration is the next question in the poll. And we'll go back to the polling results.
While you guys are taking that poll, on the technical gaps, we're tracking those. Chris and I both have things we're tracking. Always open to hear those. You're never going to go there without a maintenance window? Chris, I think it's the first time we've heard that.
This morning, first time this morning.
We definitely know, and we have a list we're tracking, and that was my point of like maintenance windows, ring deployments. I know you guys have patch fully automated. Patches come in, they go through rollout projects, and you check the exceptions, and we manage. So we know we have to close those gaps. I think in every area I have gaps I'm closing still. Discovery, I think I'm probably ahead of EPM. Still have some gaps I want to close. Remote control, I think I'm ahead, but I have a set of configurations I have to get finished. And Thomas is holding me to those. He had that look of like, we're working on those. So we're closing those gaps. We know of most of them. That doesn't mean don't want to hear it again. Love hearing it. So if you have those, the more we hear them, the more we're able to adjust priority. So we are working on closing those. So
if you want to hear about some of those gaps and when they're going to be closing, catch the 3:30 State of the Union update from Darren. He's got both Rex and my roadmap updates mixed in there. I think you're going to see some of the things that you're interested in. Just going to throw that out there in the next 3 quarters.
And he told us we had to come to answer questions.
Yeah. A lot of you will find that it will be very much in a state where you'll be ready to start moving. So, all right. So stage of migration. We got a lot in evaluation right now. Awesome. Several not started. 13% in the planning stage. We do have some that have started rolling out. So, and we do have some use cases that have been fully migrated. So for those of you who were in the started rolling out and fully migrated some of the use cases, anybody want to share what you have moved or what you're in the process of moving right now? Thomas?
We have one of the larger ones around, and we're fully migrated. We've been migrated for years. And, like Jose says, you got to pick out where you're going to get your return of investment quickly, because you don't want to keep paying double.
Right.
We do 30,000 remote control sessions a month. That was an easy win. So we just jumped in the water, deployed everything, didn't even give a hybrid model, because when I started there was no hybrid. It was all or none.
One of the prime sources of feedback saying we need a better way.
Yeah.
It's here now.
So we deployed with a tool, put it on there, and then the first task we did with Neurons was uninstall the tool we deployed it with. So we're full in it. I think we've been in it, Rex, about 10 years maybe? Yeah. I mean, we've been, there's been, that 1% fully is me. I'm fully deployed. This is a great tool. So, I mean, you just got to pick where you're going to go with and make that return on investment. Not having a timeline of stopping patches, because not all patches are mandatory in all aspects. And I think that's one of the issues that we've ran into a lot, that we can't deploy everything because it may not be tested to our proprietary software.
Right.
So that's where that
control
is.
Yeah.
But
I think we got time for one more response. Would anybody else want to chime in with how their experience is going? All right.
I only got a small user base of about 1,500 endpoints, but I have the rare occurrence of employees that don't actually use their laptops or use their VPN connections. So it's helped me tremendously in my patching percentages, because a lot of times they just open up their email, which doesn't require VPN in our case, and then also they have an app that doesn't require VPN because it's provided as a service and it grabs an SSO from the back end. So my security officer is happy that we're patching more stuff. And what used to take me a month in the patching cycle to get to my peak numbers, I'm patching, 80% of the machines or maybe 90% of the machines that are going to get a patch like that day.
Right.
So whoever was logged in at that time, it just goes.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. I hope this was helpful. Hope it answered some of your questions about what you can expect, what that experience might feel like. So thank you for your time this morning. We'll talk to you all later.
Thanks, everyone.